Hey, what's good guys, it's OneWorld HD, and I'm doing a discussion today on who is the strongest Yonkou. I've heard a lot of discussion about this, of course. It's been talked about a lot. There's a lot of discussion about the Yonkou in general, and ever since we were introduced, people were automatically like, Law or Kid are going to be the next Yonkou, or there's always been discussions about who's the strongest. Shanks is the strongest, Blackbeard is the strongest, Kaido is the strongest, and it's usually a back and forth debate that never really gets anywhere. So I'm going to answer the question of who is the strongest Yonkou, and first we must define what a Yonkou is, what makes a Yonkou a Yonkou. So first off, you must have a large amount of land amassed in the New World, obviously, and you must have to be able to defend these territories properly. So you got to be insanely powerful in order to, of course, defend these. And then, of course, you need an incredibly strong fleet. You're going to need more than one person. You can't, of course, own all these territories by yourself. Even if you're, God level, you can't possibly go back and forth defending these islands. So you're going to need a really strong fleet. And you're going to need a lot of numbers, too, of course. A lot of underlings. Now, as to who could possibly be the strongest, we got to consider the conditions as to who could be the strongest. Now, who has the most land is very important, because typically the more land you have, the more power, influence, manpower, and overall money you have. You're going to have a lot more funds, you're going to have a lot more people to maybe enlist in your army, you could enlist them as pirates, and all of this can be factored into being the best. Now, obviously, you must be incredibly strong to be the Yonkou. They're the 4 best pirates on the planet, even rivaling the Navy, and they're one of the world's 3 superpowers. So of course that's all important, and your crew must be top-notch as well. This comes back to your crew. They have to be some of the best. Even Whitebeard, who is the best pirate alive, could not make any solid gains on the Marines without having his fleet to back him up. He can't take on everyone by himself. So you're gonna need a lot of numbers, and that's why Luffy has sort of now established a fleet. So if your fleet isn't the best, you could be overthrown. So with the current land division amongst the Yonkou, this seems to be the general setup. There are around 4 general equal amount of land in which each Yonkou reigns over, and if there's a significant increase in land by a single Yonkou, that would create an imbalance, giving them the power to overwhelm another Yonkou and take their position. And obviously, if there was an indication of land being taken over, then this would start a war, which would be notified of. So with this in mind, we could say that the current Yonkou have not shown any significant feats over one another in terms of land, which could also show that there is a balance between them in power. There's a general fear between each other. And so how would they get land? Well, between these 4 divided territories, not all this land in the New World is owned by a Yonkou. 2 examples of this so far are Zou, which maybe isn't a great example, and Wano Kuni, which have shown to be independent countries with no real control from government or Yonkou. So this sort of neutral territory between them could be what the Yonkou strive for, which is sort of why Kaido has recently been trying to take over Wano. We have yet to see a real attempt for a Yonkou to take another Yonkou's land. So this sort of leads to a disappointing answer, and that is that there really isn't a strongest Yonkou that at least can be fully established. The Yonkou are set up to be 4 individuals who have a pretty even amount of land and power divided amongst them. So the exception to this could obviously be Whitebeard, who is called the strongest pirate alive and who had the most potential to be Pirate King and with the ability to destroy the whole world. Now, of course, he's dead now, so we can't really, find anyone who can really qualify the same as him. But to go into more detail, yes, Kaido has been established as the strongest creature, but this is not the same as the strongest pirate, which is the title Whitebeard had, and which could obviously mean that Kaido is not being referred to as the strongest overall creature or living animal. It could just mean non-human, since Law already indicated that he's not human, and we have yet to see any real indication that he's better than any of the other Yonkou. There's been a lot of claims about him being the best, but we haven't seen anything solid yet. And on top of that, his overall strength could be the best, like his raw power. So that's why they say when it comes to Kaido in a brawl, you always want to bet on him. But this doesn't include factors such as Devil Fruit ability, Haki, and the strength of his fleet. So it's not enough to say he's the strongest Yonkou, at least from what we've seen. And Big Mom also seems to be a huge rival of Kaido in the fact that she shows zero fear of him thus far. She stole Caesar, who is very precious to Kaido's business, and has taken many territories which seem to be within the same area as Kaido, and Kaido hasn't really taken them, or Big Mom hasn't taken Kaido's territories. Since neither of them have shown any signs of hostility towards one another, this could be an example of the balance of power needed between them. And even if Kaido has more physical strength and power than her, she still might show feats in intelligence, strategy, devil fruit ability, haki, and the power of her fleet. And Shanks is another example, and he has showed to not really fear Kaido as well. He's confronted him in Marineford and came out victorious, seemingly victorious anyways. And it's debatable if this is due to a difference in power, but obviously if Kaido was vastly stronger, then Shanks wouldn't have been the only one to come out of this battle, and he would have shown signs of injury. He also clashed with Whitebeard, showing that even though there's a pretty big gap in strength, it's not so big that they're miles apart, and goes to show that even the strongest pirate is still close to the other Yonkou. So as far as the raw facts go, that seems to be the best answer. But you know what? I'm going to actually give you an answer with a pretty good amount of evidence backing it up. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you haven't considered this. So hopefully, it enlightens you a little bit. But I believe that Blackbeard is actually the most likely answer if there were to be an actual strongest Yonkou thus far. And not so much in current strength, but at least potential. So first off, Blackbeard has been talked about the most when it comes to how dangerous he is out of all the Yonkou. Even Shanks, before Blackbeard became a Yonkou and defeated Whitebeard, or even knew he had devil fruit abilities, were warned of how he might overthrow the whole world one day. So that shows even without all these special, abilities, he is very dangerous. And this could be partially due to him carrying the will of D, which seems to be feared by even the world government, the group that governs the whole world. And he's managed to defeat, although unfairly, Whitebeard, and took his power, which was said by Sengoku to be able to destroy the world at its maximum potential. He also has the strongest Logia fruit, which disables all other Logia and fruit abilities, and he has taken a majority, if not more, of Whitebeard's land. Since I mentioned the balance between the Yonkou earlier, this implies that he has managed to get just as much land and power and influence as the other Yonkou in only around a year or two. And let's not forget his crew. His crew is the strongest from Impel down. These are all the pirates who have been captured, and he has the strongest few from there, out of the deepest level, level 6. And since Blackbeard only accepts the strongest in his crew, this goes to show how strong they might really be. Lastly, he knows a very important secret to devil fruits. He has not only been able to gain more than one fruit ability, but him and his crew have the knowledge of how to directly steal fruit abilities from other users and sell or use them to gain power and influence, which gives him a very, very big advantage in terms of being a Yonkou. But that's not all for this discussion. I also have to discuss now that we've established how the Yonkou work and who has the most potential, now we have to discuss on how the future of the Yonkou system or Emperor system could work. It has never been stated that there has to be 4 Yonkous at all time, which is important because that sort of needs to change later on in the story, which I will explain later. So if a Yonkou loses his or her land and power or is defeated in battle, then there might be only 3 Yonkou unless a new person, of course, takes their land and position. And Blackbeard, in this case, took Whitebeard's land, so there was still 4 Yonkou afterward. And the Pirate King is the person who manages to beat all the Yonkou and take over the whole Grand Line, which is why I really said that Luffy's going to need to sort of conquer the Grand Line, which of course he's not going to do. He's just going to kind of own the land or influence them. And so this means that no Yonkou would exist if there is a Pirate King. So 4 isn't the set number for the amount of Yonkou, it's just the current amount thus far of how the land is divided, and is of course subject to change over time. Now for people who of course say Buggy, Kid, Law, or whomever might become a Yonkou, it is very unlikely given these circumstances, and this would mean that they have to first beat a Yonkou, take all of their land, build a fleet, and then be able to guard their land against the other Yonkou who have, loads of experience and power. And for Oda to have to write all this for characters who are obviously just going to be beaten or allied with Luffy in the long run, it's just an inconvenience, and it's not impossible, but it's just pretty unlikely for that to be sort of written out and established. So the only way it could work is if Luffy becomes a Yonkou and grants them like a piece of land or something like that, or like a whole little section, which would lead to, of course, an imbalance in power and territory control if it does happen, and it would make it nearly impossible for them to remain a Yonkou for very long. And that's only if they're actually able to be called a Yonkou to begin with, because they would have to build a balance between the other Yonkou in order to survive. So even though these ideas limit a lot of possibilities that people have thought were possible, it does give us a better understanding to the course Luffy will have to take in the future. So Luffy already said that he'd take down all the Yonkou, and he held up 3 fingers. He also does not seem to have anything against ruling over territory. It's just that he doesn't want to conquer it. And this is proven by the fact that he said he was going to take Fishman Island from Big Mom. And he also has a new fleet established. It's a pretty early fleet, but similar to Blackbeard and Whitebeard, it's an indicator that he will need that huge amount of manpower in becoming a Yonkou. He can't rely on, the couple of crew members he's had throughout the series. Of course, that he's always sort of had that number, but now it's just too much in the New World. Now just being strong, you're going to need a lot of people and a lot of power to be able to control this land. And in order to become Pirate King, which is his ultimate dream, he's going to need to do this anyway. He's going to need land and power over the other Yonkou, meaning he will sort of indirectly become a Yonkou before he becomes Pirate King. And remember, you don't really tell people you're a Yonkou. It's sort of just given to you. You don't just decide if you're a Yonkou or not. You can't just say, oh, I'm strong, so I'm a Yonkou. You actually got to take land, and then you're officially considered an Emperor or a Yonkou. Now, with that said, who might he defeat in the future to gain this status of Yonkou and ultimately Pirate King? First off, we have Kaido, and in the past 2 arcs, they were pretty much spent in order to fulfill Law's plan to take down Kaido, and it's very likely that Kaido will be the first to be taken down, or at least second, and the other potential first could be Big Mom. And Luffy said that he would defeat Big Mom and take Fishman Island from her, and of course, she was the first one he sort of declared war against. And Sanji will probably in this next arc anger her and fuel an eventual war between them, if not maybe after the Kaido arc. And then we have Blackbeard, who is the most fearsome Yonkou and will likely be the final villain of One Piece, probably the one to sort of determine who will become Pirate King. Now notice how I did not include Shanks on this list, because when Luffy held up these 3 fingers, like I said before, it was probably a foreshadow that he would not officially fight Shanks. Now of course he said he was at the beginning of the series, but you can kind of assume that it wouldn't really work. Like, how is he going to fight Shanks? Are they going to have a friendly battle? I mean, they're pretty much, really bonded, and it would just be like if, I don't know, this is kind of a weird example, but imagine if like Naruto had to fight Jiraiya or something and become Hokage. It's just really weird. So it still might happen, but it seems that this is sort of a foreshadow that Blackbeard will actually be the one to take down Shanks. Because remember, you need to kind of restore balance. So if Luffy takes down Kaido and Big Mom, Blackbeard's going to need to take down another Yonkou, and the other one really left is Shanks. And Shanks, like I said before, probably won't be taken down by Luffy, because Luffy's not going to take him down, take all of his land, and humiliate him. So I believe that once there are 2 remaining Yonkou, which would be Luffy and Blackbeard, who have taken down at least 2 Yonkou each, this might end up being what leads to their battle to decide who will become Pirate King. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if the evidence is good. If you have any counter arguments, be sure to reply in the comments once again. Be friendly about it, and I'll see you later.